Andy Katz for NCAA.com and March Madness with a conference tournament preview. Now I'm looking at 6 power conferences right here. I'm not addressing the A10 because I think VCU is the only at-large candidate if they don't win the tournament. In the American, I see all 4 teams that I think will be in regardless of what happens this week in Memphis, those being Cincinnati, UCF, Houston, and Temple. And I'm not including the Mountain West because right now Nevada and Utah State are in. So let's look at 6 other conference tournaments where a lot is at stake this week. Let's start in the Big East where I think the most could occur related to the bubble. Georgetown, which is still lurking there just outside, possibly has a chance to get inside. Look what they've got here. They're going to take on Seton Hall in a 3-6 matchup. You get by Seton Hall, then you've got a chance possibly to take on Marquette. So what happens if you beat Seton Hall and Marquette on the way to the final? It certainly will help the Hoyas. Creighton, which is suddenly now lurking around as a possible bubble entrant. They're going to take on Xavier. Got to beat Xavier. And then if they beat them, they beat potentially Villanova. So if you get wins over Xavier and Villanova on the way to a final, that will help the Blue Jays. And St. John's, which is trending in the wrong direction, now has to play on the first night of the Big East tournament. They got to beat DePaul. That's a given. Then potentially another shot at Marquette, which they would get if they beat DePaul because Marquette had the bye. And then if they beat Marquette, then you're taking on Seton Hall and Georgetown, 2 teams that have already beaten St. John's this season. That certainly would help St. John's resume. So a lot of potential opportunities for St. John's over the next couple of days at the Big East tournament. Let's look at the SEC in terms of what's most critical right now. A couple I want to highlight. Florida, which has been trending on both sides of the bubble. They're going to take on actually a hot Arkansas team right now, which is doing well. Got to knock them off. And then you'd have an opportunity to possibly take on LSU. You beat LSU. Again, Florida ended up, getting them at least once. That would certainly help Florida's case if you get 2 wins against LSU. And then who knows what would happen in the rest of that if they would take on, South Carolina or Auburn, another opportunity potentially for Florida. Alabama, trending in the wrong direction. Alabama has to beat Ole Miss, a team that I think is in the field. Then they'd potentially get another shot at Kentucky. If they were to win that game, they would take on Kentucky. That would be great for the Tide, obviously, as well, in terms of their resume. And then who knows, would they get another shot at Tennessee? South Carolina, it's interesting. They're the 4th seed in the SEC, but they're not close to getting in right now. They need a lot of work. They got to get some good wins in the SEC tournament. There are teams behind South Carolina seeded that I think will be in, like Ole Miss, which is a 7th seed, like 6th-seeded Mississippi State. Kentucky and Tennessee enter the SEC tournament in Nashville with a legit shot to be a number 1 seed. We'll see how they fare this week. In the ACC, not a lot of movement on the bubble. NC State Clemson, we can't call it an elimination game because we don't know what the selection committee will do. The loser, though, is going to be sweating on Selection Sunday. The winner has a chance to take on Virginia. So if you beat Virginia, if you're NC State or Clemson, it's going to help you. Trust me. So you at least would have that opportunity. Syracuse, I think they're in, but it would help their cause. Certainly if there's any doubt, get by that one matchup on the second round on Wednesday, which would either be BC or Pitt, and then you got a chance at taking on Duke. If you beat them a second time, certainly that would help the Orange. Duke and North Carolina potentially crashing in a semifinal. Winner may be taking on Virginia. Number 1 seeds are at stake. Virginia, I think, is a lock. Duke, Carolina, both could be number 1s or only one of the 2. In the Big 12, Baylor, Iowa State, trending in the wrong direction right now. They're both going to get in, but that's a seed game in a quarterfinal matchup. TCU playing on the first night against Oklahoma State. That's a danger game because Oklahoma State is playing well in the Big 12. I think they got to win that game, and then TCU would take on Kansas State. So more opportunities for the Horned Frogs. Oklahoma, got to beat West Virginia in that 7-10 matchup. And then after that, you take on Texas Tech. Another good opportunity for the Sooners. Texas, they're playing Kansas in a 3-6 matchup. It would certainly help the Longhorns' case if they can knock off Kansas in the Big 12. In the Big 10, once again, can't call this an elimination game, but Indiana takes on Ohio State on Thursday. The winner, new life. You're taking on Michigan State. The loser, definitely sweating on Selection Sunday. If it's Indiana, and you're taking on Michigan State, a team you've already beaten twice, that's really going to help the Hoosiers' cause of potentially getting in if they could beat Michigan State 3 times. Minnesota, I think, is in, but they're in a danger zone playing a Penn State team, which has been very hot right now in the Big Ten. Then the winner of that game now will take on a Purdue team that both teams have played well against. Now, Penn State didn't beat Purdue, but they played well against the Boilermakers. So Penn State, not going to get in as at large, but they're kind of a danger team right now because they're playing so well in the Big Ten. Iowa, they're going to get in, but their seeding has taken a big hit, losing 4 in a row. They'll play Northwestern Illinois winner, and then if they win that, they got Michigan. So a lot of work to do for Iowa for their seeding. Michigan State, Michigan certainly playing for a high seed in the NCAA tournament in the Big Ten. See if either one can obviously win this tournament in Chicago. In the Pac-12, to wrap up our Power 6 look. Look, getting into this tournament, Washington and Arizona State have the best chance of getting in regardless. Washington, though, you could argue is the easier top half of the bracket. It would certainly be in Washington's best interest to win this Pac-12 tournament and get at least to the final. Arizona State, they got a potential landmines here. Could potentially take on UCLA or Stanford. Not an easy game for them. Then who knows? Is it Utah? Is it Oregon? Is it Washington State? And if it's Oregon, watch out. Oregon's already beaten Arizona State. Oregon is a danger team as a 6th seed in the Pac-12 tournament. Keep an eye on the Ducks. They certainly could beat Washington State, beat Utah, beat Arizona State, and suddenly be in the final against Washington. All right, that's a quick look at the conference tournaments with what's at stake this week in college basketball. For NCAA.com and March Madness, I'm Andy Katz.